Hello everybody, Tech Talk Tuesday. Can you hear me okay? Somebody give me a shout out on the sound. Tech Talk Tuesday number 86. I know it takes about 30 seconds for you guys to come up on there and we can see you. Bruno, yeah, Sean, yes. So let me see. The sound is okay. Live, yes. All right, thank y'all. JJ, David, Charlie, religiously Charlie Edmondson. I am so thankful for your consistency. Good job, man. Daryl, John Davis. Wow, John Davis, you're in there early. I bet you can't stay the whole time. Jack, I'm thankful to see y'all. Ronnie, you know, I realize what time it is in different places. You know, it's 5 o'clock here in Tennessee on Tuesday afternoon, 6 o'clock in Georgia up the East Coast, and it's already tomorrow in Australia. And I see there's a lot of folks comes on to watch, and it's really cool to see everybody line up on here at once. And first thing, you know, if anybody, any of you follow me on Facebook regularly, I think Sunday I put a post up just asking questions about a spark plug gap. Got a lot of good responses, got a lot of interesting comments. 370 something grown men wrote comments out, and the thing that I saw that amazed me out of all the comments that I saw, and don't go look now if you didn't see it, but you can go back and look Sunday and see it. But it was an interesting, as far as when I say interesting, based on the amount of response I got on the Facebook page, was pretty big on Sunday. And then the one yesterday about the flow bench and just my opinions and ideas, and just trying to generate some conversation, not really trying to prove anybody right or wrong, but I wanted to say that what I discovered yesterday and Sunday that were overwhelming to me, given everything we see on social media and on the mainstream media and what we see on the news, is I had hundreds and hundreds of grown adults from all over the world typing, responding, reading, speaking with me, and no one called anybody by name. No one got mad enough to cuss. No one told me I was stupid or crazy or told me I was dumb. I didn't feel that way towards one person on there watching. I just wanted to say I felt that there was some great mutual respect that just, it warmed my heart to read and see how many people were connected through these interesting conversations about things that are obviously important or interesting to us, without anybody feeling like they got thrown under the bus. And if you did, this is my point, if you felt like that I pointed at you, or you think that I was talking about you, or I was talking to you or about you, and you think that I had a malicious thought or feeling in my heart, probably sorry, really, no chance. I was merely trying to generate the conversation that was so enjoyable, and we got to see a lot of words written, and it was really, really cool. Didn't agree with everybody. Everybody didn't agree with me, but it was so great to see the respect given, the respect received. It's okay to talk. It's okay to have a conversation and to exchange views and ideas. And some of you guys are so excited about what you believe. And just like I'm excited about what I think I believe. And when I say what I think I believe, I gave you a bunch of crap to think about. You know, I wasn't trying to prove you wrong, man. I wasn't trying to say that your way was wrong, and the way you did it 50 years or 70 years ago, or the way Smokey did it, or the Westlake guy, or the guy that invented the offies and stuff, man. Those guys, Ed Iscuderian, the Cam father, and Ed Pink, and those guys, our forefathers, our founding fathers of our hot rod industry, all over the world, not just the ones we read about in America and over in California. It was just so much fun to interchange, I call it, my respected peers, the people that I look up to, your opinions. But, you know, I'm old now, and if you're 70 or 80, God bless you. I don't know how you made it that long. I'm 66 now, and I'm thankful that I feel this good. I know I look like I'm 100, but I don't feel like it. I am so thankful for that. I wanted to tell you that your interchange with me and interaction with this conversation, these about flow benches and dynos and cylinder heads and valve size and intake flow and exhaust flow and percentages and math and piston speed and rings and all those cool things that I eat, sleep, and drink. I'm so fortunate now. One of my friends, Steve Johnson, said, yeah, and I got lots of them. I am so thankful. I have an NFL Steve Johnson. I have a guy that's Induction Solutions Steve Johnson. I have a guy that works on airplanes and little small engine Steve Johnson. And then, of course, there's the Pro Stock Steve Johnson. And then there's another guy that's from another country, drives race cars, and he's Steve Johnson, but he says his name, Stefan Johansson. But I think he's still Steve Johnson. He just, like in his country, they're saying Steve Johnson, but it sounds like on TV, it sounds like Stefan Johansson. But back to what I was saying is, I am so cool with you knowing what you know and trying to explain your thoughts of what you think about it. And I wanted you to think about a different way, like just a perspective, like you're standing in, like me, when I'm working on my engines and all the stuff I worked on in my years in my career, I was so close that I really couldn't see the forest for the trees. I couldn't feel the heat for being in the fire. I don't know how the right words to say are, but you know, when you stand so close, sometimes you need to just back up and stand over here and look at it. And over here, you can see it different. Ron Reese, still porting cylinder heads. He worked at Star Racing for 35 years, and me and him learned a lot. Greg Cope, probably had 10 guys over time that worked porting cylinder heads at Star Racing. But I'm going to tell you, Ron was hung in there like a hair in a biscuit all the time. From the first time all the way through, he's still doing it right now. He's still doing a lot. I'm still doing what we learned. I'm not porting heads, but I am definitely trying to get some lined up. And I understand a little bit about it now, where I was just an infant. And I think I know more about it. No, I know more about it now, but I also know I don't know near enough about it. But what I was going to tell you about Ron is he was porting heads, and his little cubicle where he sat in the chair for 35 years with the head in front of him, and he would pour. He poured over here, and he had that little fixture, the little rack, where his chair would be here, and he would bring number 4 close to his chair, he'd bring number 3 close to his chair, he'd bring number 2 close to his chair, and he'd bring number 1 close to his chair. So it was 1, 2, 3, 4. And I would walk in, and I would say, hey man, how's it going? I'd look, and I'd say, wow, that's beautiful artwork. And then I'd get over here and look at it, and I could see the ports were coming. And then I'd get over here and look at it, and the ports were going over here. And I was like, man, we need to move your chair over. And I'm not making fun of him or talking about him, because this is how we learned everything we know. It's in order for him to see it, we had to turn it upside down, spin it around, and look at it and see that when you turn it upside down and spin it around, the ports were going this way a little bit. And some of that was great, but it was good news to learn. And now you stand back and you get a different perspective. And I'm not talking about which way the port's going. I'm not talking about the shape of the port. I'm talking about the perspective in which we stand. We get so focused. A guy with that gets a new Barrette, and he's got some CCing equipment. He gets him a piece of plexiglass with a little hole, and once he learns how to CC something, he CCs everything, and he writes it all down. And then somewhere he read in a book where every chamber's got to be exactly the same size, every port has to be exactly the same size, every exhaust port same size, and he CCs domes and chambers and ports. And man, once you learn how to CC, well, that means take a fluid drip and count how many cc's of the Barrette go in to fill that spot up and start recording them. But in reality, that's a target, a good target. And I'm not telling you how not to blueprint an engine, but I'm going to tell you, at the end of the day, this is where we went all the way over 40 or 50 years, was from trying to make every port the same size and trying to make every chamber the same size. We only worked on what we knew. We did not know that every cylinder needed a different timing curve, and every cylinder needed a different fuel mixture to try and get the most power it could. Because in our V8 stuff, we would have one target. We would have a timing target, a jetting target, an air fuel target, and then we would even have like one wideband sensor in in a 4-in-1 collector for the driver bank, and have one O2 sensor wideband for 4-in-1 headers for the passenger side. And in reality, we were only looking at an average of that family of cylinders. You know, these 4 guys average 12.8 to 1, and these guys, 4 guys over here would average 12.8 to 1. And in reality, some of the cylinders were 13.5 to 1, some were 11 to 1, some were 14 to 1, but the average was 12.8, say, if that was a target number, 13.2, 13.0. But please don't just use the number. Listen to the scope and the perspective of what I'm talking about. Each cylinder wants to contribute. If you had a tug of war and you had 8 teammates pulling the rope, always one guy's pulling harder. There's one guy that's the smallest and he's pulling hard as he can. There's one guy the biggest, he's pulling as hard as he can. And they all want to do all they can. But on an engine, for instance, there are going to be 8 timing numbers, there are going to be 8 jetting numbers, there's going to be 8 compression ratios. I've even seen over time the people talking about the lobe phasing in the camshaft to be different for each cylinder and each bank of cylinders. I know that's getting way out in left field, but over time we learned that just because you can measure something, and you do measure it, and my going there with like this, and I'm jumping around because it is a scrambled eggs mess in my head. When you learn how to gap a spark plug, now you want to gap everybody's plugs. You're going to gap your buddy's spark plugs. You're going to gap the ones in your car you drive to work, and you're going to even go outside and gap the spark plug on your lawnmower. And then you go on the forums on Big Block Chevrolet or Small Block Chevrolet or Chrysler or anybody's forums, and there's a guy always writes in there, 2 guys. One, he says, "What oil do I use?" Well, that's so tough to deal with. You got to be, it's hard sometimes just to relax and realize that everybody doesn't know. And then there's the other question is what do you gap your spark plugs at? Well, I have never seen. I just go on your favorite forum and put, what should I gap my spark plugs at? And you will see the experts come out in, like, it looks like one of those movies where the zombies come in. The experts flood in there trying to eat brains like the zombies. So I had a really nice time with the Pro Stock car deal talking about spark plug gap. It's pretty interesting what people had to say. And I noticed that human nature is for everyone to tell what they know rather than answer a question. Like you can go on the internet and you can say, what is blah, blah, blah. Well, instead of somebody saying the answer to that question is X, they will tell you a whole things they know about something to do similar with that. Like back in the day, I have made a homemade flow bench and we did this, we did that, and we ran at 10 inches or 8 inches or 4. I'm going to tell you, watching me and hoping I'm going to say something negative about a flow bench, I just want to tell you this. I have spent, for one guy, having one little shop, over 40 years, have bought more flow benches. I'm a flow bench buyer. I bought the first Superflow 110. I bought a 300. I bought a 400, 500. I don't even know, 600, 750, 800. Bought the biggest flow bench they had. Then I bought a 1020 flow bench. And in the middle of all that, Larry Widmer closed Endine the first time, and he had this giant flow bench. He was in Hot Rod Magazine and Circle Track Magazine with the swirl power deal for the Ford engines, where he was doing some swirl power stuff, and they were using names like Bill Elliott and Bob Glidden, and of course one of my heroes is Larry Widmer in there, and they had Roger Penske's name in there. They had a lot of cool stuff going in these articles I was reading in Hot Rod Magazine, Circle Track Magazine, and I was reading these stories, and I was so enthralled when Larry Widmer was introducing the swirl meter, where he built these really cool impellers, and he could move the impellers up and down in a clear plastic bore and set a cylinder head on it. And his flow bench, it was a homemade flow bench. Well, it didn't look like it was made at anybody's home, I know, but he had a laminar flow deal. I forgot what he called it, but anyway, it had a piece that went down in the bench where it would straighten the flow through the bore, and then it would measure. He had manometers that you could adjust the pressures and all stuff, but it had a 3-phase, 3-horse electric motor, and it had a Paxton supercharger on it. and it took in so much air out the 4-inch pipe that went up through the ceiling. It had a rain cap on it, and when we would turn that the supercharger, we would turn the flow bench on. I mean, it would pull so much air, and it would be whooping and screaming that the birds in the neighborhood would get out of town because it would suck so much in. It would create such a depression, and we learned so much with that. And then, of course, through time, my point is, I spent a lot of money on flow benches. So I am not the Debbie Downer of flow benches. I just have a different viewpoint now. Is a flow bench a great tool? Absolutely. Does it tell you everything you know? Oh, heck no. It's been replaced in several ways, but it'll never be replaced as a tool for you to use as a benchmark to suit something. I tell people all the time, if there's 100 reasons why an engine wins or goes slow, the flow numbers on a flow bench at one flow depression is one of the ingredients to that 100 ingredient recipe. It's one. It's not the only, it's not the largest. In my world, it's not even the top 10. In my world now, it is the shape and the size to suit my goals. And the flow bench is just like calling a buddy and you have an opinion. This is just me now, please. If you are a flow bench guy and you have a shop and you make a living and you charge people for your flow bench results, you are the man. I am. And the girls, I know you girls on there do it. It's a good business for you, man. And I'm going to tell you, flow benches and flow bench results sell cylinder heads, and they sell cylinder head work because our whole industry, our audience is trained to buy flow numbers. This program is not near long enough for me to explain to you the real detailed action that's going on in there when that crankshaft's going around and around and that piston's going up and down and your engine's turning 6,000 or 8,000 RPM and the piston's going up and down. It's going 5,000 feet per minute, up and down, and I have not worked with a flow bench that has a piston in it. There's not a piston in the way. It's just an open hole. Like if you have a 4-inch bore engine, it has a 4-inch hole. It's this deep. It has nothing in it, and you set the pressure on the flow bench to 28 inches of depression, and then you start opening the valve. 50 and you write down the number, and you shoot it to 100, then you write down the number, you shoot 150 and you write down the number, and then somewhere along the line you get to full lift, 600, 700 lift, maybe 900 lift, and you got that valve open, but it's still pulling 28 inches. And there's so much more air going in the flow bench when you go from 100 lift to 700 lift that you have to crank up the pressure to get the pressure to measure 28 inches on the manometer. So you're keeping that constant, and you're keeping the bore and the opening constant, but in reality, the air is going in and out. The intake valve's open and closing 50 times a second. How long is 1 second? 1001, 1002. So the piston went up and down 100 times, and the intake valve opened and closed 50 times. So if your flow bench is to simulate the intake valve opening and the piston going down, the air comes in and you set the valve at some lift, and then you adjust the knob to get the pressure to some pressure. That right there, my friend, is only that amount of time that's happening at 6,000 RPM. It is one snapshot. Here comes the engine. Wow, full throttle, and you go snap, 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 and you take about 6 pictures. Those are 6 photographs of some lift, and the piston already went up and down faster than you can count. So, don't throw your flow bench out. Don't get rid of your flow bench buddies. Listen to them. Learn what they're showing you. Learn what they're telling you. But my flow bench friends, don't get married to that number, because it's just like the dyno, man. They have dyno contests and they have flow bench contests, but I never got an NHRA Wally or a World Championship because of a flow bench or because of a dyno. Yes, they were tools. Great guys working in the shop. Great manufacturers of really cool parts, pistons, valves, springs, retainers, camshafts, connecting rods, crankshafts, all the trinkets, exhaust systems, intakes, all those pieces are just as important. So the pieces, the exhaust, y'all. The flow bench doesn't show you that. The flow bench, you get the exhaust valve open to 300 lift, and then you crank that pressure up to 28 inches of depression. I don't even know of a time during the 200 or 100 times a second it moves that the exhaust ever sees a number like that. The exhaust is when you light a bomb. You get 1,000. You light a bomb. You get in a ton of air and a ton of fuel, and you squeeze it as tight as you can on compression stroke. And then you light the spark plug, and this thing goes boom. It goes boom so big that fire comes out the exhaust pipe. And when that happens, when that exhaust valve opens, there is no flow bench on earth that can measure what went out of that valve. So that's why we look. Over time, it used to be intake flows this much, exhaust flows this much, intake flows this much, exhaust. Nowadays, you see 99% of the data says the intake flows X. And it flows X at 28 inches, and it flows X at full lift at 28 inches. And those numbers sell cylinder heads. They don't tell you the exhaust anymore because it's not relative. It's a percentage of what the intake flows because it's measured the same way. Yes, the flow bench is pulling, it's got a vacuum cleaner inside of it and it's sucking air in. And when you go to the exhaust, you turn it off, you put it to exhaust, and then you open the exhaust, close the intake valve and open the exhaust valve, then you turn the flow bench back on, and now it's a blower blowing out of the cylinder and blowing out of an exhaust pipe. And it's 1% of the amount of pressure that comes out of a real running engine. And on the intake side, when you get the pressure close to what the engine's running at one small nanosecond at a time, it's going in and out so fast. Here's a great one for you that we learned the hard way, y'all. Our flow bench was close to our dyno room, so we put our flow bench on casters, on wheels, and we rolled it near the dyno room, and we drilled a hole in the dyno door, and we ran a pitot tube and a little piece of tubing through the door, and Ron went inside the dyno room, put a helmet on and gloves and a leather jacket, and I got the engine full throttle, 4-cylinder, Pro Stock Suzuki engine. We got it at full throttle, turned 13,000 RPM, and he took the velocity probe and he stuck it down in the port. It was about this long. He stuck it down in there while the engine was at full song going, wah, and he stuck a velocity probe in there, and there was no velocity. None. Sorry. Nope, it was just a steady pressure at that speed. And it's going in and out, in and out, in and out. And when you get to peak torque with an independent runner, where you got 4 carburetors and 4 engines and 4 ports, and you run to peak torque, it's so far away from where you're going to run it on the drag strip or on the racetrack that it doesn't really matter. But let's just say you go through peak torque and the intake is clean. There's nothing at the carburetors, there's nothing. But as soon as you get past peak torque and the RPM is going, now peak torque was at 8,000, here comes 9,000, here comes 10,000, here comes at 11,000, and all of a sudden you start seeing this smoke or fog coming out of the carburetors. And that is the air coming back. So when you have a carburetor on one of these engines, the only way fuel comes out of the bowl into the airstream is by the airflow through the carburetor. And when it gets up to where it's getting overfueled, and now it's going both ways, the air is blowing in and out. So when you get to peak horsepower and you're trying to measure what's happening in there with a flow bench or some equipment, what you're going to see is that the air is coming in and out of the engine really fast. So it carburetes going in and it carburetes going out. Now EFI is a little different story because we put the injector right in the cylinder head and we spray the gasoline at the back of the valve. So we don't need the velocity or the airspeed to make the fuel come out of the carburetor and stay suspended in the air going in. Nowadays we need a whole different port than we did with carburetors because we don't care. It used to be, how does your engine carburate? How does it drive? How does it drive at low speed? So big carburetors, when you floor it at 2,000 RPM, it would go whoa, because no fuel would come out of the carburetor and go in the engine. It would just die. Back in the day when I was a kid, we had automatic transmissions. We put a big cam and big headers and a big carburetor and a big Edelbrock manifold and a big Holley 850 double pumper on a 327 Chevy with a Power Glide and a 13-inch torque converter, and you floor it, the engine would almost run backwards because there was no airspeed pulling fuel out of the carburetor. Nowadays, with fuel injection, we can control the injector pulse width and the timing of the injector so that the fuel goes in when we want it to. And also variable cam timing now. We can have a really short duration at low lift and a high duration at high speeds, and we've learned a lot about it. I'm ranting on a little bit now, and I just wanted to tell you that what is your head's flow? Okay, I retired. You know what? Mark Fricke bought the Star Racing equipment. Ron Reese is now porting cylinder heads just like he did at Star Racing, still in Georgia, still over there near Americas, Georgia. He's doing it at his house. He's handed off the torch. He's taken the torch and run with it. Mark Fricke and Ron Reese are doing this now with V-Twin Power Sports out of Chicago. And what I want to tell you is, I realize standing in this perspective, I'm standing over here now, looking at the cylinder head business, instead of hoping I can make payments this week, hoping I could pay my team, hoping I could pay my bills, standing over here looking at the cylinder head business now, and it has a different look to it, rather than sitting in the chair with the porting machine or the CNC machine and having a goal or having a target on exactly what I wanted it to do. I get to see a different perspective now of the whole picture. And I am also doing consulting work for lots and lots of engine designers, because I have a perspective that's not makes me smarter than anybody else, but I've been blessed by the good Lord to have been working and thinking and using and trying every day, 7 days a week for 40-something years. And I learned a lot. I paid attention too. And if any of you guys are learning right now, if the good Lord gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth, and it's hard for us to remember this though, and I do a lot of talking, so I get smacked around a lot with this, but we should use these tools accordingly. We get 2 ears to listen through and 1 mouth to talk through. So we should use this twice as much as we do this. And I am only trying to offer what I think I know based on tons of experience and tons of what I think is something that I learned that seems factual to me. And I'm not telling you anybody else is wrong. So if you got your feelings hurt about my opinion, I'm not saying yours is wrong. I'm just telling you that I clicked in. I put my opinion out there. I am a target because I put it out there. I have people that don't agree with me. I love you even if you don't agree with me. It doesn't matter whether you agree with me or not, whether you're a good dude or not. But please, don't hate on me because I don't understand or believe the same thing you do. That's in everything in life, my friend. I got just a minute left, but I want to tell you a lot of questions about this part. I did not realize that this part was going to be so successful or so much interest. And this is happening really fast. I got 10 of them done. We got the really nice REM finish on them. And this is such a cool part to go in a new Harley Davidson. This is the Milwaukee 8 compensator, the 3 ramps for the compensator. And that's another story another day, but I just want to tell you about how different this is real quick. This is a Timken tool steel material. I'm going to read a little fact sheet on it. Timken steel alloy, an EN36B. It's 3% nickel, chromium case hardening steel that is supplied in a bright drawn state. In other words, when you get this bright drawn, I'm talking about this thing is hot and rolled. After carburizing, the EN36B gives a hard case, which is like M&Ms. They're really hard on the outside and soft on the inside, and it's really hard to get through the case. The case surface hardness is really hard. In addition, due to the nickel and chrome content, it offers a high tensile strength that is useful in numerous applications, including billet crankshafts and drive gears. So this is a great update. This is not a 4130 or 40 whatever this is that I've seen a couple people talk about, but this is a whole different part, and we are having them made by a lot. Like we got 10, sold them in an hour, got 10 more, sold them in 2 hours, got another 10, and now we're having them made really, really often. So within 2-3 weeks, I should have enough to go around, but right now we're behind on them. And when you do order one, get in on 10 at a time, get in on one. We sell these for $3.99. The one that's in the bike stock bust breaks right here, right here, and right here. They're very brittle. These are not brittle at all, but these are tough. If Superman was here, this is like kryptonite. This stuff is tough. I've used up a ton of time without sharing much tech talk, mostly opinions, but I wanted to thank y'all so much for watching. I see we had a good crowd tonight. I saw a lot of questions pop by. I will try my best to answer them. And email me questions, y'all. I am George at starracing.com. I am also George Bryce on Facebook. I have an Instagram page as well. That is, I get a lot of traffic on. I get a lot of little short videos that I do on there, and I get a lot of traffic. I think it's called George Bryce Star. My name is Bryce. I'm Jackie Bryce's husband and Julie Bennett's daddy, and I've been doing this for a long, long time, and I'm a God-fearing man, and I am thankful for the opportunities that he has given me to share this information with you. May God bless y'all. Good night.